Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We are thrilled to have a special session focused on using generative AI in consulting. And consulting involves conducting a deep dive analysis of the current state of the client and customer landscape. And we will share some strategic recommendations and roadmap for the future that aligns with the industry best practices. So Gen AI can play a vital role during this consulting journey, and in this tech talk, let's discuss various points we should keep in mind for a successful use of generative AI in this direction. And to guide us through this fascinating topic, we have Vijay, an expert in technology and consulting. And let's give a warm welcome to Vijay. So we can already see a screen, and let me have 1 minute to highlight that we are encouraging our audience to feel free to write down any questions you have during the talk in the comment section. So we will make sure to cover them during the Q&A session at the end of this tech talk. Vijay, the scene is yours. Please proceed.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on whichever geography you are in. A very warm welcome to this presentation. I am Vijay, and today I will guide you through a sequence of things. How I have planned this is, I'll start with a very short introduction for a minute about myself, and then I'll explain what this consulting is all about. When we talk about Gen AI usage in QA consulting, the people who are attending this, not all may be fully aware of what consulting is. So I will give a brief overview of what we generally do for about 5 minutes. And then I will go into each phases and I'll explain how we have tried Gen AI in consulting and what kind of success we have seen as a team. So that's what today's presentation is going to be. Totally, I am planning for 30 to 40 minutes. Please feel free to put your questions. We'll try to answer that towards the end of the session. Thanks. Moving on. Like Camila introduced, I am Vijay. I'm based out of Chennai. It's deep south in India, and it's a beautiful coastal town. And I've done postgraduate degree in engineering. in NIT Trichy, India. And my work experience is about 24 years, little more than that. I have worked across the world in different geographies, sitting alongside customers, helping with digital transformation. And I am 3 years and 1 month old in EPAM. And during my tenure in EPAM, I have done a few consulting assessments. I have shown those logos here, some of those logos here, like Hong Kong Jockey Club, Uber, UKG, McCain, MasterCard, Edward Jones, Alshaya, and things like that. So, with the experience gained by doing all these consulting assignments, um, we wanted to see how Gen AI can play a role into consulting, and that's why in the last 2 3 months we have been experimenting a lot in terms of bringing Gen AI into consulting, and we see reasonable success there. So we will get into the presentation. So here, for those who have not done consulting, this may be a good introductory slide on what we do generally in a consulting assessment period. Right? It's a very very interesting thing, and let me explain that with keeping the focus area, which is the center of this presentation. From there, I will explain you how this actually works. So we generally get into a customer place, and we do an assessment of their current practices. We take about 2 weeks to 8 weeks, any time between this, to understand their landscape completely from process, tools, technology, and people perspective. So how do we do that? To understand their complete landscape, we need to do two things. One is the artifact review. The artifact review is like we get into the details of going through the test strategy, test cases, automation frameworks, all end-to-end architecture. Everything requires a detailed analysis. And then we come to the interview and workshop. Um, it is like we talk to people to understand what's going on. We don't restrict the conversation with just QA associates alone. We talk to development team, UAT, Scrum masters, project managers. We talk to the all the teams to get a complete picture. And to give you a view, sometimes we even end up talking to 50 different people, 50 different separate conversations in a large assessment, even more than that sometimes. So when you get all this information in the form of artifact review and your interview workshop, you get to understand their landscape a lot better. So now once this exercise is over, you will know what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses. Now, you need to bring in two dimensions to this. One is the client would have told you certain things like my defect leakage is very high, or my time to market is very high. We need to reduce the time. So, can you do an assessment and tell us what is right for us to do in future? So, there may be certain client vision and client goals that the client himself herself would have given. And then once we have the current state, we have our EPAM best practices, we have our industry best practices. And because EPAM has been in this field for more than nearly 30 years, we have gained a lot of relevant experience over a period of time from domain perspective, from tech stack perspective, by working with various clients. So we know how the good looks like. So now we superimpose their current state with the industry best practices. We clearly get the gaps. Now these are the ones which gets converted into recommendations, and these recommendations will also become a roadmap. For example, when we give a final report to customer, we tell what are our top findings, and what are the quick win recommendations which you can implement very quickly and see a lot of good results, and also the implementation roadmap, what the customer has to do in the next 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months period, what individual actions they need to take so that they reach a better maturity than what they are today. So this is what a consulting assignment is all about. So this is what, in 2 weeks to 8 weeks period, consulting team ends up doing. I've oversimplified this. It's a very detailed thing that gets done, but in a nutshell, this is how these are the activities that a consulting team would do. And let me get into some details because this is very important to gain an understanding on how Gen AI will play a role in these consulting assessments. So, I was telling you about various activities, right? I have split this into four different pillars or four different phases. The first one is the planning phase, followed by discovery, then analysis, and then comes your recommendations and roadmap. So, in the planning phase, it is all about how prepared we are to go into the assessment. Things like, do we have right questionnaire in place? Do we have we created on what dimensions, sub dimensions, what focus areas, what sub focus areas we will do our assessment? So all those things, complete planning before we get into customer place is our planning phase. How long it's going to take, who is going to be part of this, who are all the different stakeholders, points of contact, all those things. Then comes, once you get into the customer place, you start with the discovery. And as you can see, in a typical 8 weeks engagement, half of the time almost goes in discovery phase. This is because, like I said in the previous slide, to review the artifacts, to talk to various people, and to get a complete understanding, it takes a lot of time. This is mainly because we don't want to miss out on anything, any important aspects. We want to get into the details so that we don't end up getting a wrong view of their current state. So this is a very important phase out of all the phases, I would say. So discovery phase takes a lot of time, mainly because we end up spending time in reviewing, in talking to people, taking notes, and then creating a summary out of it, all those things. And then comes analysis phase. Now that you have all the data, you do analysis on top of that data. When you say analysis, you clearly call out, these are these are going well, these are the improvement areas, all those, all the things, like, what is their current defect leakage percentage, all this current state. Basically, you get to understand all the numbers, what are their metrics, all these values. You gain insights during the analysis phase. And then once you have that, you then start with your recommendations, because you know what are the improvement areas, and you also know between those things what are the dependencies. Now you can give better recommendations, better roadmap, so that at the end of the implementation phase of these recommendations, your the maturity of the client increases, gets better. For example, if the current state says their defect leakage to production is about 6%, 7%, then, in future, how to arrest that to 2%. So all the activities required to improve the quality or reduce the defect leakage will be part of your recommendations. So that's what actually happens during this entire period. Now we get into each phase separately to see how in reality we have used Gen AI to make things a little bit easier for us, and it worked well for us. So first we start with the planning and preparation phase. So what I have listed down here are some of the very key activities where we prepare the contextual questionnaire, and then we also finalize all these dimensions, like, process, tools, and then, it can be CI/CD. All those dimensions and sub dimensions gets finalized in this phase, and we use the Gen AI use case, which is uh, generating a contextualized question bank. So the inputs are like this. So we already have a question bank. There are a lot of questions already available, hundreds of questions available, and sometimes it becomes very difficult for people to go through that and finalize what is very relevant for this particular customer. So we give that as input, and then we give information about the initial information about the engagement, because customers would have engaged us for a certain reason. We give those reasons and objectives as inputs. And then if we know certain things like high level tech stack, sometimes we get to know that it's a SAP shop or it's a Microsoft shop. If we know those kind of details, and if we know what are the testing tools that are already used, you can give those high level details as inputs. And then what you get is a very contextualized question bank. We tried it in a few places, and it has been successful as well. So what are the critical success factors? It is, one is, we need to have a comprehensive question bank as input, and we already have that in EPAM. And we need to give appropriate context during this process. And obviously we need to have human in the loop, because when it comes to consulting, we are not there yet where everything can happen completely unmanned. It's we are not there yet, but we have been quite successful in using Gen AI to augment what takes a lot of time for humans. So if you see this, let me just share my screen to show you um, the Alita thing, what we have done for creating a contextualized question bank. Okay, so here is the question bank that we have given as a data source. I mean, most of you would have worked on this, Alita. You would have created agents, or at least most of you would have undergone prompt engineering training. So I understand that you will follow all these things what I'm saying quite easily. So this is something we have given as data set for Alita, and then we wrote a prompt like this. In the prompt, we define the roles, the context, the instructions, constraints, output, and then how to evaluate, and finally the questions, how the output format should be, with ID, question, reason for asking the question, and then what testing dimension it refers to. So that's how the output should be. That's how we have given a prompt. And in the variable, the little known information about the project, like it's a workday. They have workday, and they have SAP, and what are the SAP modules that are in focus, and what are the workday modules that are in focus. We have given these inputs as variables, and we also created an agent where we have given clear instructions to do what we intend to get as output without any error. And these are the two inputs. One is the question bank, and the other one is the prompt. These two, we have attached the data source, and we have also attached the prompt. And this is the output we get. So when you write a query asking please share assessment questions for test automation maturity, out of hundreds of questions, it goes into the document, it fetches the right information, and it puts the SAP and Workday context into it, and then it creates this output. So what we have found is, in the whole exercise, um, it has always given us an extra perspective to look at. If we come up with certain perspective, if we finalize the questionnaire on what to ask the customer, the AI always gives an additional dimension, because um, when you do consulting, you may not be a complete expert in all the technologies. You might have worked on AWS in the past, but Azure might have certain nuances. Similarly, you might not have worked in SAP. So all these nuances are taken care when you get an output. So it actually increases the coverage and also improves the quality. That's what we have found. Similarly, there is an alternate way to do this through EPAM dial. So what we did is we give the question bank as input, and then we ask for um, you know uh, generating the question, a shortlisted question on a particular area on automation maturity. This I have given. I am just showing this as an example. You can give any example. For example, if you want to focus only on metrics, or if you want to focus only on agile processes, you can you can very well have a subset of questions shown to you, and you will always find there is a lot of additional information it has put from the LLM, apart from the reference document that you have already given for validation. So this is how we use to generate contextualized question bank, and it has been quite useful in last three instances. What we have seen is, of course, there is always a possibility to reduce some of the questions, because how much time you have, all these things. But the important point is, it gives a different perspective, additional perspective, so that you don't miss certain important things. That's what we found when we used Gen AI for this. And moving on to the next phase, which is the discovery phase. Like I said, this is the most time consuming phase. And we felt that this is the phase where Gen AI can become very useful for our analysis purposes, discovery purposes, because we will have a lot of documents coming in. We will be talking to too many people. We And particularly Gen AI being very good at reading the natural language and creating a summary out of it. So we found that during this phase, using Gen AI has helped us do two things. One is, that overall time also got reduced. The second thing is the quality of output, the level of information that we were able to gather also improved. I'll give one example. For example, uh, we got 10, 15 different confluence pages, each running for so many so many scrolls. So all these things, uh, that explains the project. It talks about what the project does, what is the functionality, how the team actually delivers things. All these things are available as document in Confluence. If you have to go through all these things and then find out what's the crux of the uh, Confluence page, it is going to take us a lot of time. Here is where Gen AI became very useful. So it actually gives you, depending on your question, give me top 5 points or top 10 points, or you can ask the. I will show you one example. What we did is, after a talk, this is for a particular customer. After a talk, we actually created. So this is the workshop transcript. What I am showing is a workshop transcript. The call went for 1 hour, and it created 41 pages of transcript. And from this transcript, we were able to create. We gave this as a input to dial, and we asked to create a summary mapped to different dimensions. For example, from the conversation, give us points mapped to continuous testing, test and defect management tools, team proposition, documentation. When we gave a query like this, it was able to very clearly generate, understand the points, and then put those points under the topics that we had given, the dimensions that we had given. And from giving this as input, then it generated the top 10 points on what could be the recommendations. So the point we want to make is, uh, see, when you complete a discussion, generally where the a lot of time goes is, you also take notes, rough notes. In that process, you tend to miss out a few points, or when you do that, it takes a lot of time for for completing the for getting the information. You would have planned for 1 hour call, but it may go beyond that, so you may have to ask for additional time from the person. So Gen AI actually helps you to create a transcript, and from the transcript, it helps you come up with the meaningful insights. If you review that immediately, you will be able to do some corrections rather than waiting, to do it at a later point. If you do the corrections immediately, it saves a lot of time because the discussion would be fresh in your mind, and if at all any mistakes done by the AI tool in terms of understanding, that can be corrected immediately. So those are the little things that actually saved us a lot of time. So basically, in discovery phase, we understand the ecosystem, we do surveys, we do workshops, and we also do skill review of the QA team. And where we have used Gen AI, the project ecosystem summary with insights. This is what I was telling on, asking Gen AI to get some insights from the Confluence pages, and then it also helped in. But now that we will have more context, we can ask to expand the questionnaire or take out certain questions based on the new knowledge that we have gained. And then if you are conducting a survey, you can always use it to summarize the survey results. And like I showed one example, it also helps to summarize the workshop notes along with insights. So then what are the critical success factors? You need to have access to the right pages. You need to have access to project management systems like Jira or ADO, Azure DevOps. And you should have project detailed project documentation available. That makes things a lot easier. And sometimes we see that some people may not be comfortable recording the conversation, transcribing it. So that is always there. 10% of such requests have to be honored, and that we cannot use yeah, transcript and Gen AI for that purpose. Those things have to be documented manually. But 90% of the cases, there were no issues in recording the conversation and converting, getting insights from that. So again, human in the loop is very important in this phase as well, because um, there is still a chance of um, getting some a few things wrong. For example, when the transcription happens, um, when somebody says something, the Gen AI might understand it when during the speech to text conversion. uh, there may be certain things which might have understood it, the AI would have understood it wrong. So what we generally do is we look at the transcript for any glaring mistakes, particularly the ones with the red mark. We can see, and we can correct if it has caught it wrong. So when we do that correction and when we give the input, the output becomes better. So that's how we used Gen AI in discovery phase. And when we move on to data analysis phase, the major activities are test case analysis, defect analysis, automation framework, and code analysis, all these things. So here, what we used is something called dedupe tool, particularly for test case optimization and defects deduplication. I will very quickly, I'm just showing you the Git link for this particular tool. Currently, it is within EPAM Git. It's not in the external Git. So people can download and use it for their purposes. But actually, what it does is, if you give the test cases dump, it actually gives you an output like this. I will show you the test case dump. So if you give a test case dump like this, with the TCID, test case name, test case description, steps, all those things, uh, the dedupe tool actually compares the test cases among each other, and it helps you come up with something like this, the duplicates. So here, what it tells here is test case ID 55 and test case ID 59, they are 100% matching from the text perspective. Similarly, test case ID 31 and 36, they have 98% match. So if you are able to create something like this, let's say there are thousands of test cases, it may be very difficult to go through each and every test case to find out what are looking similar. It will be very difficult to do that. But if you are using such a tool, you can always ask someone. Once you do this exercise, you can ask someone to see why 55 test cases 55 and 59 are looking same. Is there an opportunity to take out one test case, or is there an opportunity to combine it as one test case? So in that way, it helps you do some optimization. So that's what is achieved using this tool. And having tools like this actually helps us give a better perspective to customers, to tell that this is what we found. And if they want to take it further and see why there are duplicates, they can go ahead. So it becomes easy for them if the numbers are huge. Same thing happens with defects as well. Let's take, in a recent consulting assessment, we were given a list of defects dump, which were more than 5,000. There were more than 5,000 defects. So when we ran this tool, we found there were 25 defects which are very similar in nature. So what it also means is, by that we will be able to identify which are defect prone areas, right? If 25 defects have occurred on same functionality, same module, same type of defect, the chances of that occurring once again is very high. So it's a good input for the development team to look at why such a defect has occurred many times, and they can correct that. The other thing is, when you are actually trying to create a defect, this tool also helps you understand if there is any defect like this that has happened before. So if you see that similar defects have happened before, like 4 or 5 defects have happened before, and if that defect has certain information on how it was sorted out by the development team, what fixes were put, then it can go as an input for development team to fix it without taking a lot of time. So your mean time to fix a defect becomes less, it reduces. So there are different use cases that we tried in one of the engagements, and this, from defects perspective, this was super successful. And from test case perspective, the optimization was effective, but because of the nature of testing, it was not that, I wouldn't say it was very helpful, but however, it was definitely helpful. But from defects perspective, it played a major role. Now, that's on the data analysis phase. Um, Similar to that, we also have this gap analysis. If you give the industry best practices and the current state, uh, I showed one example where after the conversation we tried to map the points based on certain dimensions that we gave, right? If we know what are the industry best practices, if we give those inputs, the Gen AI also generates what are the gaps. It very clearly compares what the best looks like and what is the current state, and it very clearly calls out the gaps. And it also adds more value by adding points from internet on, an LLM, on where things have gone wrong in the past, what are the challenges, and what can be done to improve certain things. All those things, we see a lot of advantages in using Gen AI in data analysis phase. Finally, coming to the recommendations and roadmap phase, we create recommendations and we create final report. Um, Here, the recommendations, we see a lot of advantage in using Gen AI to generate recommendations, uh, because of the kind of instructions and the kind of prompts that we have given. We were able to achieve a reasonably good output, and which is kind of trustworthy. Of course, it has to undergo multiple iterations and multiple learning to make it very robust and unmanned, but the output is very convincing at this point of time for the recommendations that the tool has developed, through Alita as well as through Dial. So what we do is we use both at this point of time. We use Alita and then we take that result. We use Dial and then take that result, and we compare and use the best of both and do this particular exercise. So here as well, on the final report creation, there is a lot of human in the loop, which is very important factor here. So we will have to depend less on Gen AI when it comes to final report creation, except the outline and certain things on what can go into the report. The actual contents, it's better if somebody creates that report ground up and comes with all the points, so that that becomes a point where you can validate whether everything has come correctly, or if there is any mistake done by Gen AI, any hallucination that has happened, you will be able to find out when you finally create a report with all the current state, gaps, recommendations, and then finally roadmap. When you are putting, you will be able to catch all the minor mistakes, if at all, done by Gen AI. So uh, the summary, what I have shown here, are the different use cases that we have tried in the last few consulting engagements in the last 3-4 months on the four areas: planning, discovery, data analysis, and recommendations. And where we have seen reasonable success, we have put this blue button, blue dot, and then where it is still work in progress, it's getting better, we have put amber buttons. So uh, as you can see, the whole exercise involves going through a lot of documents, talking to various people, coming up with summary, and then comparing the best practices and their current state, gap analysis. There's a lot of scope for Gen AI to play a role here. That's why we tried, and we have been, like I said, reasonably successful. These are not the only test cases. There may be more use cases in future, but as we expand, we will be adding more details to this view. And the ultimate goal is to see all of these to be created as agents, and all of these agents will be orchestrated. Like the output of one agent will go as input for one another agent, and totally it will become like a chain, so that the human in the loop goes down and down as the maturity progresses, and it can completely become unmanned at some point of time. So that's the overall goal, but we are not, definitely not there yet. But it's the right time to start using Gen AI in consulting. That's why we started that, and since we see success, we are slowly improving as the Gen AI also evolves. This model also will evolve, and finally we may come to a point where we will do it everything unmanned with very very little intervention from uh, humans. So with that, I think I've taken 40 minutes, like I originally said. So now we can open it up for questions. Any doubts or any information you need, please feel free to ask in the chat window, and we will try to answer. And if we are not able to answer, certainly we will get back to you with the right answers. That's one thing. Second thing is, if you are doing any activity like this with your customer, you can get in touch with us, and we will try to see how this can help you in your context, so that the overall process will get better. If we start using it in different places, we will also learn, the agents also will get better with proper context and right prompts and right messages. So that's what the intention is, to make it very collaborative, and for people to start collaborating and using. And similarly, if you have used something, please let us know. We can try to incorporate that into this, and we can have more use cases, and we can have a better perspective. If you have some ideas, we are open to listen to that as well. Thanks.
Thank you, PJ. And let's switch to Q&A part. We have a few questions in the comments, and I'd like to encourage our audience to not hesitate to write down your questions, comments, and so on, and we will discuss them on within this session or later. So, the first question is, what are some common challenges when integrating generative AI into consulting workflows?
Right. So, see, the challenges I have kind of addressed in the form of critical success factors. Anyway, I'll try to summarize what are the top challenges that we faced. Initially, when we started the discussion, um, the contents that were generated, even the contents that were generated by Teams transcript, was not up to the mark. So when you look at the output, what were discussed and what was converted into text was not convincing enough. So we had to do a lot of review and corrections to the transcript and then give that as input. So what we started doing is we started going slow. We started making clear, we started doing clear discussions, slow and clear discussions, so that the output generated by the transcript was not misleading. So but still, it is one of the biggest challenges that we see, because during the discovery phase there is a lot of uh, dependency on people talking, and then transcript getting generated. So uh, reviewing that transcript and making corrections were challenging in the first place. So we then understood how to make the transcript generate the contents first time right. So we are following those best practices. That's one challenge. The other thing is, sometimes we don't get access to the confluence pages. The project documentations are not good enough. So in that case, again, we need to try to get all this information from different people, and then we need to create some contents. So where there are enough data available and where there are no access restrictions, the output has been fantastic. But where there are, because of security reasons, because of people not accepting to record conversations, there we see difficulties and challenges.
Thank you, Vijay, for sharing this extended answer. And let's move on to the next question. How do you ensure the ethical use in areas like data privacy and decision-making transparency?
Right. So this is something very important. Um, the reason being, uh, this is, in a consulting exercise, you get to understand a complete landscape of customer, starting from how they run projects, to what are the projects, important projects, and confidential projects they are running. And there is a lot of data, like what is the time in which they want to go live. All these are confidential data. For example, if a banking customer, if this kind of data goes to external uh, public forum, then it becomes very difficult, because there's a lot of competition to develop similar products, similar things by their competitors. So Data privacy is very important. That's why in the beginning of the engagement with customers, we should make it very clear that these are the things that we are planning to use Gen AI for this reason, and because we are using it via Alita and Dial, which has all the guardrails in place, it is safe. So we need to give those explanations, and we need to make them understand, and with only with their permission we can go ahead and do this. Otherwise, it becomes difficult at a later point. So good question, and this is something we need to explain them and make them understand how secure it is at this point of time, and with their permission we can go ahead and conduct use Gen AI for this purpose.
Thank you. And it seems that we have the last questions for today's Q&A. Let's check it. Could you please provide examples of business domains where generative AI has had the most significant impact?
Yeah. So, see, there are certain domains where Gen AI has been very helpful. I would say if you take retail domain, for example, particularly the e-commerce domain, uh, the success of Gen AI has been phenomenal um, because of the reason that those products are used by pretty much everyone, um, pretty much everyone. Like if you take for example Amazon or any such e-commerce provider, the use cases, the different functional flows and different possibilities through which you can achieve certain things are available. It's available in the external forums, and in the form of application you can actually get all those insights by going through the application itself, against some products which are used only by, say for example, insurance agents. If there is an application used only by insurance agents, uh, gaining insights and understanding about that product may be a little difficult, and it may not be available for LLM to go and search and get right information. So things like, if it is a uh, for example Uber taxi booking app, information about how the functionality should work, what can go wrong, what are the challenges, how customer experience can be gained. All these things are available right in the internet. So, if it is an application like that, food delivery or taxi app or e-commerce app, uh, Gen AI does a marvelous job. But if it is a very closed application, it struggles to understand the functionality. And that's why RAG is very important. You give context in the form of data source internally and augment it with additional information to make the output correct.
Thank you, Vijay. And it seems that we finished with the Q&A part, at least for today. And I'd like to say thank you, Vijay, for sharing your time and expertise with us today, and your insights into using generative AI in the consulting and sharing the results have been incredibly valuable. And we deeply appreciate your effort. I'd like to remind our audience that one of the best ways to say thank you to our speakers to share badges via VR community or Heroes platform and to send some kudos if you liked it. And let's all give Vijay a round of applause for a fantastic presentation. So thank you and have good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Camilla, and thank you all for joining. Thanks a lot. Please get in touch with me if there is any further question. I enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it too. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Let's see you on the next events.